Everyone, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel, and this is your tip of the week. I often get questions from viewers about how long should I make my table runner? How much fabric do I need? And so I'm going to go over how to calculate all of that so that it kind of clears it up for you. So let's take a look at this right here. Now this is a table, and then here is the runner. What you want to do is first measure the length of your table. That's real important. Then decide how big you want your table runner. Do you want it to go all the way down to the edge of the table? Do you want it to fall over the sides? How wide do you want it this way? Do you want it to cover most of the table? Just a little bit? Do you want it real narrow? If you want to make a table runner where people are going to be sitting down and there's plates on each side of the table runner, you want to take that into consideration when you're deciding how big your table runner is going to be. Are you going to be setting food on top of it? So these are all the things you need to take into consideration when you're making it. How much fabric you're going to buy really depends on the width of your fabric. If you're using quilting fabric, on the average it's 42 inches long. So if you had your fabric that you purchased folded in half with the selvage edges together, and let's say you wanted a 12 to 15 inch wide table runner, you would go over that number of inches and cut. So if you cut one, by the time you're finished making it, it's going to be about 40 inches when it's done. If you need more than that, you would cut 2 strips of it, stitch those strips together and using a 1/2 inch seam, and then determine the length, and then you would cut that fabric down to the length. When you're doing that, I like to make the seam right in the middle, so when you're setting your centerpiece on top of it, that seam is going to be covered. So 18 inches is a 1/2 yard, 36 inches is 1 yard, and then there's all that in between. 9 inches is a 1/4 yard. So if you want to know how much fabric to get, this is how you determine it right in here. Now suppose you want to make a table runner that's got some large squares on it, and so you're going to use 2 different fabrics and every other square is a different color. So let's say you have a pink and a yellow, a red and a blue, whatever you're using. Now because I want my finish size of my squares to be 12 inches, because I want my table runner 12 inches wide, I'm going to need to cut my squares a different width, and that's because I added a seam allowance in. So even though the finish size wants to be 12, you want to add a 1/2 inch because I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam. So 2 times a 1/4 inch is a 1/2 inch. So whatever size square you're going to cut, you need to add that seam allowance in. It's very important. Now I have a very long dining table, so my table runners are always extra long. So because I want to use 2 different colors, I need to decide how many squares I'm going to cut out of each. So if I cut 8 squares out, that makes my table runner 96 inches long. That's a little too long. But if I cut 7 squares out, it's 84 inches. So you always go the number of squares times the 12 inch or the finished size of your square. And that'll tell you how long that table runner is going to wind up. So you want to do all of that. And then because I'm using 2 different colors, fabric A, I'm just going to cut 3, because remember I'm going to need a total of 7 squares, and I'm going to cut 4 out of the second color. Now here is my finished table runner, and it has a patriotic theme, red, white, and blue. So I've got the 7 squares on the front, but then I need fabric for the back. So let me show you how to calculate that. Now remember, my finish size is 84 inches. Now for this particular table runner, I want to cut fabric for the back that's going to be larger, because I'm going to do the method that's often used on Quilt As You Go, where you fold the edges over to the front and stitch it down. So I've cut my fabric 3 inches wider than the top fabric. So then I'm going to also need to cut 2 strips, because this particular fabric that I used was about 50 inches. So in order to get it down to that 84 inches, I need to cut 1 more piece. So I often will select fabrics that either have the same theme as the front or a different theme, because then I get 2 table runners for the price of 1, basically. So on this one, it's 2 pieces of fabric stitched together in the center. So let's look at that center seam. When I cut the fabric out, I didn't worry about matching it here in the center, because I always put a centerpiece in the middle of my table runners, so it hides that. When you try to match up stripes, it usually takes more fabric because you're shifting your fabric around. And so this is why I will always put the seam in the very, very middle. This particular table runner, because the fabric is so heavy, it didn't need any fusible web or fusible fleece or even cotton batting. You could put it in there if you want to, but it's a really heavy table runner because it's outdoor fabric that I used. Now, as far as how I hem the edges, because the fabric on the back is larger, I'm going to center the top fabric over the back fabric. Press the edges by folding the edge over once towards the edge of the top fabric, and then folding it over the top of the fabric and stitch it down. So I first did the 2 longest edges, then I went to each end and folded those edges over and then stitched them down. A long time ago, a viewer gave me an excellent tip. She said that on all of her table runners, she used Scotchgard to spray on it. And of course, there's other products. Here's another product by Rust-Oleum called Never Wet. So she sprays it all over the top, and because this is 2-sided, I would spray it on the back side too. And then they can be easily wiped off. So it's great for an indoor table runner and an outdoor table runner. I like to throw really quick center pieces together because when I'm making a table runner, I try to keep in mind what I can put on top of it. And I'll often pick just a vase of some type that has a very neutral color, because I can change the flowers, change the bow, and any other seasonal decor that might be in season at that time. I hope this tip of the week was helpful to you and that it sort of takes the mystery out of how much fabric you need for a table linen project. Now, if you're interested in other table linens of all types, whether they're placemats, napkins, table runners, tablecloths, all of those items, you want to look below your YouTube screen in the description section. So scroll down and then click on either Show More or the down arrow, and it will expand open and you'll see the links down there. Now, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl, this is Manny, and this is Scotty. See you next time.